Hi friends, today we are going to discuss a problem on simplex method. This is a linear programming problem and simplex method maximization problem. Maximize z is equals to 40x1 plus 30x2. Here this z is equals to 40x1 plus 30x2 is called objective function and x1 plus x2 is less than or equals to 12. 2x1 plus x2 less than or equals to 16. These two equations are constraint equations. This z is equals to 40x1 plus 30x2 is objective function and the below two less than or equals to equations are there. These are called constraint equation. First of all, we need to change the constraint equation less than or equals to into equals to sign. For that, we will use slack variables like x1 plus x2 plus, here I am taking s1 as a slack variable. S1 is equals to 12. Similarly, for the second constraint equation, we can write 2x1 plus x2 plus s2 is equals to 16. Okay, I have changed two constraint less than or equals to equations into equals to type. Okay, and we need to write this objective function also in terms of slack variables like z is equals to 40 x1 plus 30 x2 plus 0 s1 plus 0 s2. It doesn't make any difference even we write s1 and s2 because coefficient is 0. So 0 into s1 you will get only 0. So objective function z is equals to 40 x1 plus 30 x2. It is same as given in the question. So this is the first iteration table. In this manner we need to construct. Here Cj means coefficient of objective function. This is z is equals to 40x1 plus 30x2 plus 0s1 plus 0s2 is called objective function. Okay, we need to maximize that. So coefficient of objective function is Cj. So in here in four boxes we will write coefficient means is 40. Okay, 40 because for x1 coefficient is 40, x2 is 30. So 30 and s1 coefficient is 0. Similarly s2 coefficient is 0. Okay, we need to form iteration table in this manner. And here basic means basic variables. First of all, we need to take the slack variables as the basic variables. Here only two equations are there. That's why I have taken only s1 and s2. If three constraint equation are given means we need to take s3 also. Okay, here only two constraint equations. So I have taken only s1 and s2. And coefficient of coefficient of slack variables is 0. 0s1 plus 0s2. So we need to take here 0. Okay, 0 and 0. S1 coefficient is 0, S2 coefficient is 0 in the objective function. Here xb is there. Now xb means the objective function equals RHS of the objective function. Okay, RHS of this first constraint equation is 12. So I am writing 12. And second constraint equation or RHS value is 16. So I am writing 16. Okay, and here first row, this is called first row. First row we will write the coefficient of the constraint, first constraint, that is x1 plus x2 plus s1 is equals to 12. These constants RHS we have written here, and here we will write the LHS values, that is coefficient values. Here x1 coefficient is 1, x2 coefficient is 1, s1 coefficient is 1. Okay, so I have written, I am writing coefficient of x1 1, x2 also 1, s1 also 1. Here s2 is not there. That's why I am writing 0. That means plus 0 s2. Similarly, for the second constraint equation, 2x1 plus x2 plus, here 2x1 plus x2 is there now. First x1 coefficient is 2. So I am writing here 2. Similarly, x2 coefficient is 1. Here s1 is not there. That's why I am writing 0. That means 0 s1 plus s2. So s2 coefficient is 1. So I am writing here 1. And if you observe, the basic variables are s1 and s2. Okay, if you see the s1 value 1 0 0 1. Okay, it is like an identity matrix. So s1 and s2 basic variables. Here s1 s2, if you observe 1 0 0 1, it is like an identity matrix. And here zj is there. Zj means it is the product of cb and x1. Okay, here 0 into 1 plus 0 into 2. The answer is 0. Similarly, for this column, 0 into 1 plus 0 into 1. Here also answer is 0. And for S1 column, 0 into 1 plus 0 into 0. 0. Whichever we multiply with 0, we will get 0. That's why we are getting here 0. Similarly, for S2, 0 into 0 is 0 plus 0 into 1 is 0. We will get here 0. And here is then Z is equals to summation of CB and XB. CB column, XB column is then summation we need to do, like 0 into 12 plus 0 into 16. Okay, here the Z value is 0. Okay, 0 into 12 plus 0 into 16. We will get 0. And here CJ minus ZJ. Here CJ objective function coefficients I have written here 40, 30, 0, 0. And ZJ we have calculated here, all zeros. So Cj minus Zj, 40 minus 0, we will get 40 minus 0 is 40. Similarly, 30 minus 0, we will get 30. And 0 minus 0, 0. 0 minus 0, 0. And if you observe the values of Cj minus Zj, 40, 30, 0 and 0. Here we need to take the maximum value. Okay, maximum value of Cj minus Zj, that is 40. 40 is the maximum value. Okay, here maximum value will be incoming variable, and first here we have seen 40 is the maximum. So we need to find minimum ratio also. Minimum ratio is, it is the ratio of xb. Okay, xb by the maximum value of Cj minus Zj, that is x1. xb by x1. If you see xb by x1, here xb is 12. 12 by 1. 12 by 1 is, okay, 12 by 1 is 12. Similarly, 16 by 2. xb by x1 now, 16 by 2. 16 by 2. The value is 8. And if you see, the lowest of the minimum ratio is 8. So 8 will be the leaving variable. Sorry. 8 is there now, it is of S2 row. So S2 will be leaving variable, and here X1 will be incoming variable is X1, entering variable is X1, and leaving variable is S2. And if you see, if you observe here, positive maximum Cj minus Zj. Cj minus Zj. Positive maximum of Cj minus Zj is 40. Okay, 40. And its column index is 1. Column index is 1. So the entering variable is x1. Okay, entering variable is x1. And the next one is minimum ratio. Here you can see minimum ratio is 8. Okay, 8. And its row index is S2. Okay, row index is 2. So the leaving basic variable is S2. Here S2 is the leaving variable and X1 is the entering variable. And also if you see, this column is there now, like this 0. If you see this column, okay, this column is called pivot column. Okay, pivot column. And this row is called pivot row, and this element 2 is called pivot element. Okay, and if you see here, the pivot element is intersection of the pivot element is intersection of pivot column and the pivot row, that is 2 is the pivot element. The pivot element is 2. Okay, the entering variable is x1, departing variable is s2. Here s2 is leaving, s2. And key element or pivot element, both are same. Key element is, okay, here entering is x1, departing is s2. And key element is, that is 2. Key element or the pivot element, both are same. First here, in order to write the next iteration table, we need to form the two equations. Okay, like that. For example, here we need to make this key element is there now, we need to make this key element as 1. Okay, and the rest other elements as 0. Okay, we need to make this key element value as 1 and other value of this column as zeros. So for that we need to write a formula like R2 new is equals to R2 old divided by 2. Okay, R2 is row, second row. R2 old value is 2. 2 divided by 2, we will get value here is 1. Okay, that's why I have done this R2 old divided by 2. Like 2 divided by 2, it will get the value is 1. And the other elements, we need to make it as 0. So instead of this 1, I want now 0 here. Okay, for that R1 new is equals to R1 new is equals to R1 old minus R2 new. Here R1 old value is 1. 1 minus R2 new. R2 new value also now 1. So 1 minus 1 we will get 0. 0 here in the place of this first the element other than the pivot element we need to make 0. So here 1 minus 1 here first this value will become 0. So that's why we have written these two formulas. Now I will write the iteration 2 table. This is the iteration 2 table. Here CZ values will be the same. Okay, similar like the first iteration table. Okay, I will show first iteration table also, so it will be easy. So CJ values are the same. So we will write coefficient of the objective function, that is 40, 30, 0 and 0. Those are the same. XB, here also XB, X1, X2, S1 and S2. Here also it will be the same. And basic variables, S1 is the same, we will write S1, and S2 is the leaving, so it will be leaving, and X1 is the entering, so instead of S2 we will write here X1. So coefficient of basic variables in the objective function, S1 coefficient is 0, so we need to write here 0, and X1 coefficient is 40. Okay, X1 coefficient is 40, so we will write here 40. Similarly here XB is the XB values, if you see here XB values, if you see here we will get here we need to write this first row values and second row values. Here formula, if you see, R2 new is equals to R2 old divided by 2. So first I will write the R2 values. Okay, R2 old value is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Similarly 2 divided by 2, R2. Okay, R2 old means this R2 row. This entire row it should be divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 divided by 2, 1 by 2. 0 divided by 2, 0. 1 divided by 2, 1 by 2. Okay, like this we will write the R2 new value. And next R1 new. R1 means first row. R1 new is equals to R1 old minus R2 new. R1 old is this one, R1 old minus R2 new. R2 new is this one. Okay, so 12 minus 8. Okay, 12 minus 8 is 4. 1 minus 1, 0. 1 minus half. 1 minus half is half. 1 minus 0. 1 minus 0, 1. 0 minus half. We will get minus half. Okay, in this way we will write the new values. First R2 new is there, that's why I have written R2 value. In second row first I have entered. After that R1 new, first row I have entered. In this way, by using these two formulas, I have written the row values. Okay, now we will find Zj. Zj is the product of CB and X1. 0 into 0 plus 40 into 1. We will get 40, and 0 into half, that is 0, plus 40 into half, that is 20. 0 into 1, 0, plus 40 into 0, 0. 0 into minus half, 0, plus 40 into half, 20. Okay, and Cj minus Zj, Cj minus Zj. Okay, Cj minus Zj, 40 minus 40. 40 minus 40 is, you see here, Cj minus Zj, that is 40 minus 40 value is 0, 30 minus 20, 10, 0 minus 0, 0, 0 minus 20, minus 20. Okay, and here Z is equals to product of CB into XB, that is these two, CB into XB. 0 into 4, that is 0, plus 40 into 8, that is 320. Z is equals to 320. And here if you see, the maximum value is here 10. So incoming variable will be x2, and here minimum ratio is equals to xb by x2. xb by x2. Why I have taken x2? It is the maximum value of Cj minus Zj. Minimum ratio xb by x2. Here xb by x2. 4 divided by x2, half. We will get 8. And here 8 divided by half, we will get 16. The minimum value is 8. So this S1 will be the leaving variable, X2 will be the entering variable. And if you see, positive maximum Cj minus Zj is, positive maximum is 10, and its column index is, that is X2 now, that is column index is 2. So the entering variable is X2. Similarly, minimum ratio is, here xb by x2, minimum ratio is 8. Minimum ratio is 8, and its row index is 1. Row index is 1. So the leaving variable is S1. Okay, here the pivot element is, how we will find out? Pivot element is, this is the key column. Okay, this is the key column, and key row, this is the key row. Okay, key column, key row, the intersection is the pivot element. So pivot element is, here row and column intersection is half. So pivot element is this one. This is the pivot element, that is half. And if you see, with this we will come to know that here entering variable is, x2. Okay, leaving variable is S1. Key element is half. R1 new. Here also we need to write the these two formulas. We need to write the formulas. R1 new. Why I am writing only first R1 new? Because I want to make this key element as 1. So in order to make this element 1 by 2 as 1, so I can write like R1 old value is half. So half into 2 it will be 1. So R1 old into 2, half into 2, we will get the value here as x2 value is 1. Similarly, here 1 I want, and here I want 0. In order to get here 0, I can write like R2 new is equals to R2 old. R2 old value is half. Half minus half into R1 new. Okay, R1 new already here I have made it 1. So half minus half into 1. Half minus of 0. So here in this place I will get 0. Here by using these two formulas, in this pivot element, here I am trying to make it as 1. This element I am trying to make it as 0. So that's why I have written like this. R2 new is equals to R2 old minus half into R1 new. Okay, with this I will write the iteration 3. In order to write iteration 3, first of all, Cj values will be the same. That is coefficient of objective function. Okay, like 40, 30, 0, 0. And here also x1, x2, S1, S2, same from the other previous table. Basic variables is S1 is the S1 here is the S1 is the leaving variable. So and X2 is the entering variable. So instead of S2, instead of S1, we will write here S1 is the leaving and X2 is the entering. So instead of S1, we will write X2. Okay. Instead of S1, we are writing X2. And here X1 will be the same. And here if you see, and coefficient of basic variable X2 is 30. So I am writing here it as 30. And X1 is 40. So I am writing 40. And if you see the values of here the formula is there now, R2 new is equals to R1 volt into 2. So we want to know first R1 volt. Okay, R1 volt is this one, 40, half, 1 and minus 2. So R1 volt into 2. We need to make into 2. Okay, we need to make into 2. Like 4 into 2, it will be 8. 0 into 2, 0. Half into 2, 1. 1 into 2, 2. Minus of into 2, minus 1. Okay, and R2 old is here R2 new. This is R2 new is equals to R2 old minus half into R1 new. Okay, R2 old value is 8. R2 old is 8. 8 minus half into R1 new. R1 new is 8. 8 minus half into 8. So here 4. 8 minus 4 is 4. And here R2 old. Okay, R2 new is equals to R2 old value. R2 old value is 1. 1 minus half into R1 new. R1 new is 0. So 0 into half 0. So here value is 1. So we will get here 1. Okay, and here R2 old. R2 old is X2 I am saying na half. Half R2 old is half. Half minus half into R1 new. R1 new is 1. Half minus half, value is 0. Similarly, R2 old value, R2 old is 0. Okay, here R2 old is 0. 0 minus half into R1 new. R1 new is 2. Minus half into 2. That is minus 1. Here value is minus 1. Similarly, for S2, R2 old is half. Half minus half into R1 new. R1 new is minus 1. Minus 1 into minus half, we will get here plus half. Half, here also half. Half plus half, we will get 1. Okay, in this way, by using these two formulas, we can write these two. Here if you see the intersection point, that is key element, I have made it as 1 and the rest another element is 0. Okay, in this column 1 and 0. 1 and 0 I have got it. And if you see, and further we can calculate the values like Zj is equals to Cb into x1, 30 into 0 plus 40 into 1. We will get 40. Okay, 30 into 1 plus 40 into 0, that is 30. 30 into 2, that is 60 plus 40 into minus 1, minus 40. 60 minus 40 is 20. Okay, and 30 into minus 1, minus 30 plus 40 into 1, 40. Minus 30 plus 40, we will get 10. And Cj minus Zj. Cj values is 40 minus 40, 0. 30 minus 30, 0. 0 minus 20, minus 20. 0 minus 10, minus 10. Here all the values, okay, all the values of Cj minus Zj are less than 0. Okay, less than or equals to 0. And so no need of find minimum ratio. And here if you see, since all Cj minus Zj less than or equals to 0, hence optimal solution is arrived with values of variables as, here we need to find out the values of variables also, like x1 is equals to, Here if you see x1 is equals to 4. Okay, x1 is equals to 4 and x2 is equals to 8. Okay, x1 is equals to 4 and x2 is equals to 8 and z is equals to, here z is equals to summation of cb into xb. cb into xb, 30 into 8, that is 240 plus 40 into 4, that is 160. 240 plus 160 is 400. Okay, z value 400. Here max z is equals to 400. Here we have got x1 4 and x2 8. And if you see even in your question also, this is a question. You can in the here question also max z is there now. That is z is equals to 40 x1 plus 30 x2. If you substitute x1 4 and x2 8, okay, 30 into 8 plus 40 into 4. If you substitute the values of x1 and x2 also, we will get 400. Okay, that is the same. So in this way we can solve the simplex method. Okay, and 40 is the maximum value of z, we will get 400, and with the values x1 is 4 and x2 is 8, subject to the constraints x1 plus x2 less than or equals to 12 and 2x1 plus x2 less than or equals to 16. Hope you like this video. Thank you. Thanks for watching.